Hello chess friends, and welcome to Azarov's chess channel, and welcome to my advanced chess theory and to another part of the hyper-accelerated dragon Sicilian defense. Today again with the continuation after queen takes on d4, and this will be our last video from this queen to d4 continuation. After that we go knight on d4, and after this knight on d4 continuation, well, this will be really something. So this knight on d4 leads into this anti-Yugoslav variation, and I'm really looking forward to show you these videos. So today again, I said, with this queen to d4 continuation, but after that we have knight on c3. But when we come to that point, I will show you white and black's ideas in these lines. So we have here the game between Nenad Ristic and Spiridon Kapnisis. Spiridon Kapnisis, he is a grandmaster from Greece, and he is a really strong player. And here he found also a really nice variation of this hyper-accelerated dragon Sicilian defense. So we have here in e4 by Ristic, c5, knight on f3, g6, d4, c takes d4, again queen takes on d4, knight on f6, and here is the difference, knight on c3. You see, white is playing more patient here. He doesn't allow here after bishop to b5, as in my previous videos, this attack on the bishop. He still controls the center with the queen and with the two knights, so his main idea is to play the move e5 and really block you out. So here after knight on c6, white has queen to a4, and the problem is really this e5 move. If you play something as b6, maybe then your opponent can play here maybe e5, and of course you see you cannot play this move knight on g4 because the queen will take it. So if you don't react here, if you play also maybe bishop to g7, you have the same thing, and of course it would be hard for you to castle after this e5 move. Of course you see knight on h5 doesn't work because white has immediately here g4. So that are these tricks by white. So basically you have to play this move d6. You see, you have to play it to prevent this e5 move, but it's now different. White plays anyway this d5 move, and here I wanted to show you the continuation. If you take maybe d takes on e5, and after knight takes on e5, well, you have two choices here. One choice is to play the move bishop to d7, which is not so good, I think, because after knight on d7 and queen to d7, although this line is very often played, but I just don't like it because you see it's still an open game, and with the bishop pair, of course, you favor bishops, and I think it's a good continuation of the game for white. So in this move, after knight on e5, you have also maybe the move here queen to d4, which leads to this continuation. Knight takes on c6. Of course you will take first the queen, then comes knight takes on a4, and then you have b takes on c6, and okay, we have now a position without the queen, so on the board. Basically we have to develop here in castle and maybe place the knight on d5, but I also don't like this weakness here on c6, so it's not, it's of course playable, but I'm not satisfied here with this c6 weakness. So after the move d6 and e5, I recommend you the move now knight on g4, because with the d6 move you have liberated your bishop, which is now protecting the g4. You see the queen, of course, now cannot take the knight on g4. So this was the continuation also in this game, and here Ristic took with e takes on d6. We have queen takes on d6. Of course, e takes on d6 is also not good because you will continue the game with the weak pawn on d6. So of course you have to take with your queen. And with the queen to d6, there's simply this one problem. Now your queen is vulnerable to your opponent's attacks, so it can be attacked here, and you have to be careful where to go with your queen. Although it's here in equal position, now you manage to equalize the position in an early stage of the game, that I like to say, because that's your goal while playing as black, to equalize as fast as you can. And but you see now, after this move bishop to f4, you have to be careful, and Qxd4 played here queen to c5, which is the correct move, of course. And now white castled here queenside. We have here now bishop to g7, and here I wanted to show you the continuation, maybe after the move rook on d5. You see, you can play simply take this pawn on f2, and if the knight comes now on e4, you have still room for your queen here on b6. So it's not an easy attack here by white to trap your queen. So we have here maybe rook to b5, but then you have again queen to d8, bishop to c4 would be a continuation, and then after castle maybe rook to d1, but now queen to e8, so your queen can escape from this dangerous attack. And you see, we are now pawn up, which is good, of course, and after a trade of pieces, of course, this will be an endgame, which is good for us. Of course, this is not a good square by the queen, but we have possibilities now here to play maybe the moves as e5, a6, just attacking backwards these attacking pieces that are really occupying our side of the board. So you see, they're attackable, they're also vulnerable to our attack now, and of course they can be kicked away. So after the move queen to d6 and bishop to f4, queen to c5 was played. Now queenside castle, bishop to g7, and now Nenad Ristic played knight on d5 instead of rook on d5. So of course it's better. It's also attacking this c7 here, so you have to castle. And probably Ristic relied on this move of b4. You see, now the queen doesn't have good squares anymore. Of course, you have to take with your knight here on b4, and but it was really too aggressive so far, because after knight takes on b4, queen takes on b4, queen takes on b4, and knight recaptures on b4, we have now knight on f2, which is attacking both of the rooks, and we have here bishop to c4. Now comes bishop to g4. Still, of course, black first develops, then of course in the next move he can take one of these two rooks. We have bishop to d5, and now rook to d8. Of course, the idea is maybe take here first the rook on h1, then deflect him from the defense of this d5, and then after that play the move a5 and grab the bishop. But of course that wasn't played in the game. In the game was played rook from h on f1, and now we have rook takes on d1. So let's see now the position after rook takes on d1. Of course, you see, we have two pawns and a rook for two pieces for the two knights, but you see, this king is also vulnerable to attacks for you, because he has these weaknesses around him. This pawn structure on h2, g2, c2, and a2 is not so good, it's not so firm as it should be when you're playing with your pieces. So this is a perfect middle game for you now, although of course white has all of his four pieces, the two knights and the two bishops. It's really a playable middle game now. So we have here now a5 by Qxd4. We have now bishop to c7, sort of a counter attack, rook to c8, and now the bishop took the a5 pawn, but now the rook comes really nice into the game, rook to c5, attacking the bishop, and of course here was played rook bishop to d8. So the idea is, of course, that was also what happened in the game. If you take the bishop on d8, then you have bishop takes on f7 and then take the rook. So here, after bishop takes on f7, the rook was taken. And now we are continuing the game with sort of, well, same material, but you see it's an open game now, and of course you favor the bishops here. We have four pawns on both sides and two bishops for the two knights, and of course both of them have the rooks, but it's a better position, of course, for black, because the bishops are really better here. So we have now bishop takes on f3, and after b takes on f3, you see now white's pawn structure here with the 4 pawn islands. It's really not so good, and it's all of these pawns are attackable by this rook here, and there will be a simple target for this rook of black. Of course, you see the bishop is on this very nice diagonal, so it's on the best square that it can be. So we have now pardon me. We had now rook to h5 by Kapnisis, and we have now rook to d7 by Ristic. So they're both attacking this pawn. So now black took here on h2, and now came knight on d5, attacking this e7 pawn. But now with this check, bishop on h6, we have king to b2, and now the king comes very nice into the game with on e6. Of course, you cannot take with the rook, then the knight will be taken. So what I like here by black's position, that his king is more in the center, so the king is also now a piece. It's sort of an endgame now here, and of course you want to have your king more central. This bishop is just getting on better and better places, and this rook is also very well placed on the second rank. So we have now knight on b6, bishop to g7 with the check, king to b3, and now h5. Simply going forward now, we because of this move, knight on b3, you see white has to take first this pawn and then go forward with one pawn. Of course, it doesn't mean to him anything if he goes with the two with both of the pawns forward. He has to play one pawn simply forward to get him as fast as possible to promotion. But of course, any of these pawns can be always met by this bishop here, maybe through e5, d4, or maybe even c3 if the position allows. So, and the knight, you see, it cannot just so lightly jump around and somehow attack this h pawn. And you see this passed pawn here on h5. It's on the side of the board, so you see I've already talked about this endgames where you have this pawn on your side of the board and how it's the pawn is well, it's hard for the knight to attack this pawn on the side of the board. So you see, of course, it's a better endgame for black. And we have here now rook takes on b2, b7 finally, and now black simply pushes forward with the move h4. We have here now knight on a4, again h3, simply push, knight on c5, of course with a check, but that's not a problem. We have here king to f7, rook to b4. The rook is trying to go behind this pawn, and we have now g5. Of course, it doesn't allow here the rook to go behind, and we have now knight on e4, and we have here now rook to g2, and game is over, of course, here, because there's no way for this knight to get somehow into the game, because the rook has occupied both of these squares. And of course, you see, if white cannot go through this square of d4 and somehow catch the pawn on h1, so this is now completely winning game for black, and here's where white resigned. So let's see now the continuation here that I recommend you. So here, after this knight on c3. The importance here is, pardon me, after this knight on c3 you have knight on c6, now queen to a4, now d6 must be played. Don't forget that you have to play this move d6, and after this e5, I think the best move here is knight on g4. Gives you more activity in this game, so I think it's the best continuation in this line. So as said, this is now the last line with this queen to d4 outpost. In my next videos we're gonna analyze this knight on e4 and how you should play against this Yugoslav setup that White is preparing, or how you don't allow him to do that. So thanks you for watching, guys. Chess is the best.